They said Brian Wilson died peacefully at 82. But the truth behind his final years involves legal battles, mind control, and a shocking twist no one's talking about. Brian Wilson, the genius behind Pet Sounds and Good Vibrations, lived decades in the glare of fame. Yet in his final years, he fell under a conservatorship that gave legal control to others. And just before he died, questions started to swirl. Who was really pulling the strings? And did Brian even die the way they said? Today, we're digging into the scandals surrounding his death, the court files, the mind games, and the few people who kept control. Here's the issue. Brian Wilson wasn't just another music legend who quietly passed away. Right before his death, in June 2025, he had lost control of his own life, legally. The person who once wrote emotional masterpieces became legally unable to make decisions. His wife, Melinda, died in January 2024. Then, by May 2024, he was placed under a conservatorship, meaning he didn't have power over his healthcare or daily life anymore. So the challenge is clear. Uncover what happened during those last 18 months and why there's a storm brewing around how he truly died. Let's start with what got the conservatorship in place. Number 1. Melinda Ledbetter's death and the conservatorship. On January 30th, 2024, Melinda, Brian's wife and lifeline, passed away. She'd been far more than a spouse. She rescued him from the grip of the controlling Dr. Eugene Landy in the early 90s, managed his medication, and handled daily life. Brian himself said she was his savior. When she died, Brian lost that anchor. By February 2024, court filings described him as having a major neurocognitive disorder, like dementia, and stated he was no longer able to handle personal care.
Number 2. The court files reveal what really happened. By May 2024, a judge placed Brian under a conservatorship, only over his person, not his estate. His appointed conservators, Gene Sievers, publicist, and Leanne Hard, business manager, both longtime associates. Doctors wrote that Brian often spoke incoherently, couldn't name his children beyond those living with him, needed help with medication, meals, and movement via walker. Judge Gus T. May agreed he had lost capacity for healthcare decisions. In the filings, they insisted the conservatorship was meant to keep his home life stable and let him still enjoy music and family. Number 3. Why this sparks scandal. Conservatorships are controversial, Britney Spears being the most famous recent case. Family members can lose control, rights can be taken away. Here's where things get uncomfortable. The conservators had total legal control over Brian's personal decisions and medication, and they were not family. No public vetting, no major objections, just they're trusted. His kids were only to be consulted, not in charge. That setup opened the door to potential abuses, over-medication, restricting visits, controlling his image, decisions made without Brian's input. Number 4. The money moves. Meanwhile, Brian's assets were managed separately. He had sold publishing rights in late 2021, approximately $50 million, whose rights were in a trust managed by Leanne Hard. So, while the conservators controlled his personal life and health, they also had control over $50 million in publishing revenue. Suddenly, having both sides of his life under control can raise conflict questions. Here's where it gets fierce. Melinda's death left Brian vulnerable. Conservatorship gave control to close associates with overlapping control of his business. Brian was isolated, weak, and unable to protest. And then he dies. In June 2025, news came that Brian had died at 82, described as peaceful and surrounded by loved ones. But then the estate immediately launched merchandise and reissues, vinyl sets, streaming hits pushed, all orchestrated by the very conservators and trustees who took control.
No independent reviews, no autopsy reports released, no public statements from any of his children, only vague posts from the estate. And the biggest red flag? These same conservators stood to gain financially and reputationally, all while ensuring Brian never had a say in his later care. That's the moment when admiration turns into suspicion. Who truly benefited in Brian's death? Those closest to Brian say he was living comfortably, enjoying family and music until the end. And maybe that's all true. But when a person loses their rights, then dies under someone else's control, and massive money is involved, questions are bound to arise. Brian Wilson's final chapter didn't go quietly. It involved power, legal drama, and sudden control of his life by others. His wife's death created the perfect storm, and his conservators, safe on record, gained total authority over his care and assets. Then, he dies, and it all moves forward. New releases, merch, money. There's no proven claim of foul play. But the system allowed people, not blood family, to take over a fragile genius's last years. And that's the real scandal. Brian wasn't just the creator of beautiful music. He was a man who lost control of himself, legally and personally. Let's remember the masterpieces he gave us. But let's also question the moments when fame and law intersect in ways that leave us wondering, who really wins?